This is Rob Pauw, and today at Tacx Turbo Talks we talk to Alex Dowsett of Team Katusha Alpecin about the 2019 World Championships in Yorkshire. Alright, it's Tuesday the 17th of September and we're in between the Tour of Britain and the World Championships in Yorkshire. And basically there's no better person to chat about both of these races than the one and only Alex Dowsett of Team Katusha Alpecin. Welcome, Alex. Thanks for jumping on the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
How much of an indication was the Tour of Britain of what we can expect next week in Yorkshire?
From a personal sort of performance point of view, I was quite happy with where I was at. Like the first 2 days, I felt very good, and then just slipped a little bit. But if the first 2 days were an indicator of how my legs are going to be at Worlds, then I'm hopeful I can put in a good performance. In terms of the sort of support from the side of the road, initially I was thinking the Tour of Britain this year was quite a quiet one. In terms of crowds, actually, it wasn't as mind blowing as it has been in previous years. But then that all came to that sort of thought train came to a stop on the final day, and when we did a lap of Manchester basically. The crowds were insane. I think it was 160k, and there wasn't a point in the road where you couldn't see a fan. And often it was huge. So it's going to be mad, I think.
Because people may have seen, like when the Tour de France was in Yorkshire, it's probably going to be just a spectacle as that.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. It's going to be. It's like maybe even the Tour will come back. It's probably sometime soon to the UK, but the Worlds, that's something that doesn't often return to countries for a very long time. So this is it's going to be a once in a lifetime thing, or once in a career thing, certainly for me.
And what do you see? Do you see around you that it has like an impact on cycling, like as a grassroots sports in the UK, or what does it mean for the country?
It does. I mean, certainly success has bred success in the UK. It all started with the sort of British cycling system back around, I think, Athens and Sydney Olympics. A plan was set in place, and that's kind of brought up your first. Like when I was a kid, there was only one or two British pros in the Tour de France, and now we can have sort of 10 or 11. But then what that has done, that sort of pathway has spread, and there's been other avenues to make it, and I think that's because of how big cycling is in the UK. Yeah, it really has. It's like a ripple effect, I guess. It's mad. It's great to see.
And you already mentioned that you were quite happy last week with your own legs at the Tour of Britain, at least for the first couple of days. There's still a long list, I think it is, for the Worlds in Yorkshire, but let's say you're going to be on Team GB. What's the biggest focus for you? Is that the TT?
The TT is the TT is my focus massively. I mean, the road race, I would be surprised if I'm selected for the road race, just given the calibre of riders on the list and the fact that they've, some guys are coming out of the Vuelta in great shape, and guys focusing on the road race specifically, whereas my target has been a 1 hour race against the clock. So if I am selected to do the road race, it'll be to do a job reasonably early on, I'd imagine. But the TT is my main focus. And it has been for quite a while.
So it's a one-way TT, 54k. So like you said, probably like an hour 10 maybe effort. I think you've done some specific training for that, maybe also on the Tacx trainer, correct?
Yes, yeah, we have. My coach Kevin created a pacing strategy in line with the demands of the World's course. And we've sort of dropped that onto Zwift, and I've managed, been able to follow I think it's something like 70 or 80 different intervals, if you like. And I can kind of, because I've ridden the course as well, I can kind of picture whereabouts on the course we would be at that time as well, which has been, it has been helpful, because certainly I think on race day it'll enable me as well to not get too carried away on the early bits, because I know there's some real grippy sections coming up, but then knowing on the grippy sections that after that you've got to not rest, but it kind of the intensity backs off a little bit, and and then it's a bolt for home.
Did you do like any other preparations in the past, specifically on the trainer for a TT, or is this the first time that you really dedicated spending those intervals?
Not this specific, no. I mean, I've used a trainer in the past, kind of as little as I could, sort of before smart trainers and all the online sort of programs you can use became made indoor training a lot more fun, a lot more, but then also a lot more productive in terms of what you get out of them. Back when I was a kid, the thought of spending a couple of hours on a trainer was fairly. You'd have to really mentally prepare yourself for that. But now it's kind of sort of the same arduous task as going out on the road and doing intervals. To be honest, there's no real difference to it anymore, which is great. In terms of preparing for a TT, this specifically, no, I've never done it. I've never had the tools to be able to do it. So it's quite impressive. It's blowing my dad's mind, that's for sure. Sort of the preparation I'm doing, I tell him, he's like, "Oh yeah, that sounds like enough."
Yeah, because your dad was obviously more about the road racing, but then in the cars, right?
Yeah. The one thing there is in common is you get to that start line fully prepared, and I think in cycling you can kind of wing it a bit because it's your bike and you, whereas if your car's not right, then it's like the car won't run. So sort of preparation and motor racing was paramount. And I'd like to think I've taken that mentality into bike racing.
And probably a part of that as well, also about the course preparation. So you said you've ridden the course. Where do you think like the biggest struggle is going to be in that 54K?
Actually, the fact that it is 54K, that is a long TT for us. It's quite rare. I think the last time, I don't think there's been a TT that long since the Giro in 2013. It's very rare we'll do TTs upwards of 40K. So except for World Championships, even Europeans this year was just 26K. Like in the last couple of years, TTs they've got shorter and they've got hillier. So it's kind of nice that Yorkshire has kind of bucked the trend and thrown in a long one. Yeah, there's a couple of ramps, there's a couple of climbs, but nothing too significant. Like you have to commit to them, obviously, but they're not gonna. If like Roglic just off the back of the Vuelta, he's not gonna climb up there and put minutes into people with his climbing abilities. They're sort of power climbs, and then there's a ramp near the end, which is actually quite steep, but you get a good run into it. I think I should be entering the climb at 90 or 100 kilometers an hour, so hopefully that'll shoot me up the other side fairly quick as well. And the fact that it's point to point as well. I mean, you can't really predict a time. We sort of said anything between 1 hour 6 and 1 hour 12, and that really is dependent on the wind. It could have a tailwind for the whole thing, could have a headwind, could be nothing. So it's a bit of an unknown to it, which is, I think for me with my experience, is a good thing.
And what do you reckon is going to hurt more, that hour in 2015 in Manchester or this one in Yorkshire?
Oh, definitely this one. Definitely. Roads of Yorkshire are not as smooth as the track of Manchester, for one, and It's a completely different kind of effort. Like our record, I was just riding to a set pace, which in the end turned out to be quite comfortable. Whereas this, I'll be riding tours. I think the hour was more of an unknown, so we definitely erred on the side of caution. Just did enough to break the record, but not anymore. Whereas here, I know myself enough to know if the pace is sustainable or not. And then in the last half, it's just emptying the tank anyway. So definitely, this will be significantly tougher than the hour.
Is the hour something that you might want to do again in the future, or?
Yeah, I'd like to. I mean, the bar's been set pretty high now with Victor, very high. So suddenly, whereas before it was quite a simple go back to Manchester, probably try and acquire some faster equipment. I mean, at the time, the equipment I had was very quick, but time's moved on, technology's developed. So, yeah, have a crack. We just know I only rode at 300, and it was like 300, it was either 58 or 68 watts, which is quite significantly under what I could have done and what we were doing in training. I think we just didn't anticipate how fast race day would be in comparison to everything in training, with the difference in temperature in the velodrome and the fastest skin suit, the fastest wax chain, and all of those little bits, like your marginal gain stuff. You just you don't go faster. It just makes that pace easier. And because you can't look at a power meter, like my power meters, because it's track rules, you can't have a Wahoo on your or a Garmin or anything on your handlebars. You have to have, like, we had it tucked under my seat, so I couldn't actually see. I was like riding around thinking, like, I think this is quite comfortable. I mean, maybe it's going to bite at 40 or 50 minutes, but currently it's this is quite manageable. And then got to like 55 minutes, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to open the taps now. It's too late to do any big damage at the time, but so yeah, I think kind of just for my own. I obviously having a world record is pretty mad, and I only had it for a month, which is more than most people get a world record for. But still, I think for my own personal goals, I'd like to actually see how far I could go, rather than riding to a schedule and just doing kind of a sufficient amount to break a record. Whereas I think to ride 55k or more is going to take everything I've got. Perhaps a little bit more, but now we have to look at whether altitude would be faster for me, because I live at altitude now, and I'm fairly useless up at altitude, but I'm good when I get down to sea level. So it's how to play that one, whether to go and do the attempt like Victor did in Mexico, or find a track a little bit lower than Mexico, or just simply go to sea level. So yeah, lots of unknowns, but it's you need the team to be into it as well, because your race program is compromised for it, and it's a significant investment because it's not part of a team's kind of initial sort of plan for the year, and it's not cheap to do it properly. And you have to do it properly if you want to do it well. So it's, one day.
One day. And you already mentioned Victor's name. Is he also on the list of competitors which you think could challenge for the podium for that win next week? Or would you see as your competition?
Yeah. I mean, he's, definitely he will be. He's one of the most thorough time trialists of our generation in terms of doing everything in his power and more to eke every millisecond. I think he's definitely changed the game a little bit for the time trial across the board. Yeah, you see his position is much more radical than most others, and quite a lot of people have followed in his footsteps. So he's been quite at the start he was a nuisance, and now he's a bit of I must probably need to take a lot of notice of what Victor's doing, because it seems to be working very well. So I think he's one of your favourites. He hasn't really raced. Haven't seen him race since the Giro. I saw Belgium, and that's you just I guess a little bit like Rowan as well. Kind of got no idea where either of those boys are at in terms of their form or anything. So I think it's. I was chatting with a friend last night, and he said this is one of the most open TTs in years. Like last year, Rowan was the hot favourite coming into it. Year before, the course suited Dumoulin like perfectly. Tony and Doha, it was sort of quite predictable results, but I think this year it's quite open.
And is there, are you still then maybe afraid of someone with a last name that ends in Poel, the young Remco Evenepoel for the time trial? Or
I think he's starting to strike fear into everyone in the pro peloton, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, I knew about him last year because I coach my company coaches a young lad called Joe Laverick, who was the only junior last year to beat Evenepoel in a TT. And Joe was telling me, he was like, no, this kid, he's really good. And I was like, yes. I was a junior once, and we had very good juniors as well. Who, some of them turned out to be good pros, some of them fell by the wayside. And Joe was like, no, you don't understand. He's something else. And then he signed for Quick Step, and the whole collective peloton was like, that's a mistake. Going straight from he needs to do under 23, because kind of like that thing in cycling where traditionally everyone does a couple of years in under 23s, and they're like, okay, well, Evenepoel's. I mean, the rides he did at Worlds were impressive, but it's juniors is a real funny one because everyone develops in different ways, and you see some kids as juniors are very mediocre in the pro world, or they don't even make it at all. And then, like Tony Martin, for example, did not win a thing as a junior or under 23, not one. And 6-time world time trial champion, or 5-time, 4-time, however many he's won, like a lot. And then he appeared at UAE and crashed. And then his summer came round, and I think that's where I think the first time was the Hammer series. Our director, Dirk de Mol, was like watching him, and he rode across to Van Avermaet on a climb and then tapped him on the hip and said, like, oh, come on, let's go. And Van Avermaet looked like he was on the limit. And it was like, okay, there's only a select few that can do that. And then his summer was unreal, actually. He to win the thing that got me, it's not obviously he's young, but he won 3 completely different kinds of races in the space of 2 months. San Sebastian, where half the Tour de France rocked up in very good form, which is obviously a seriously hilly race. He won that. Then he won Tour of Belgium against a very informed Tim Wellens, and then European TT Champs, which was a course built for your likes of Jos van Emden, Stefan Kung, myself, and Filippo Ganna. And that race specifically, it was tailwind out, headwind back, more or less. So I held back on the way out. I held back. I was sat at 445 watts average, thinking, well, you've held back, but you haven't held back much, mate. And then they came down the radio like, so you're 14 seconds down on Evenepoel. And I was like, how? How is that possible? Because this is really good from me. And I could see Stefan Kung up the road. I wasn't gaining on him, but I wasn't losing ground. I was like, this is sort of Stefan's bread and butter in terms of a course as well. And then I sat on 450 watts into the headwind the whole way home and gained nothing on Evenepoel. And that I was like, okay, this kid's going to be a real problem in the next couple of years. So yeah, I mean, I think a 54k TT, a lot of people would say maybe it's too long for him, but I think with what he's doing this year, you just don't know, and I probably think he doesn't know either. Which, I mean, it's exciting because I think we're seeing a generation of riders coming through which are going to change the game completely. You know, like Matthew van der Poel in the Tour of Britain just didn't abide by, well, not rules, but sort of what you do in road cycling. Like if it's a sprint finish, you start with 200 or 100 to go, and he would start with like that uphill finish in the Tour of Britain. He'd start with 600, and no one could live with it. And it's just changing the game.
Should we write Mathieu's name down then for the road race?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would. I think with the only thing other teams can hope for with teams like Holland and Belgium fielding an all-star cast is that they struggle to ride together, like as a team. I think when you've got probably more so the Belgians than the Dutch, you've really got an all-star cast there, and they might say they're going to work for each other and help each other, but I think they might also all have an eye on their own ambitions there. Whereas if you go in with a team which is fully committed to one rider, I think that would be stronger than sort of 7 or 8 riders that are they've got half an eye on their own ambitions.
So at least we're going to be in for a cracking one, and maybe see some surprises along the way. So for yourself, for the time trial, what would you be happy with?
Whoa. It's like,
or do you look like at the power outcome rather than like the results?
It's more the ride. I want to know I had nothing left, like in the ride. In terms of if I can look back and go like that was everything from me, and that's everything from me in terms of the last 1 hour, but also the last 2 months. I can be happy. Then it is difficult to predict a result in the TT. I mean, I think everyone on that grid wants to win. I want to win, but and I will do everything in my power to win. And I guess that's the idea of a time trial. But if like my 100% puts me on the podium, great. If my 100% puts me in the top 10, then it puts me in the top 10. And if I'm outside, then I will be disappointed, but sort of that'll be my all.
Yeah. Right, we're going to move on to the Tacx Turbo Talks fan question of the week. Each week, people send their questions in for our podcast guest, and someone sent a question to you. We're going back to the cars a little bit. It was Simon Tock. He wanted to know, money, no object. What car would you like most to own?
Porsche GT2 RS is the one I keep coming back to.
Okay, is it going to have like a yellow stripe on it, like the old Mercedes had? Or?
I think most of them come with a stripe. Probably wouldn't opt for. I don't think Chanel would let me opt for something as garish as a yellow stripe. But I think there'd be a stripe somewhere.
All right, we're going to wrap it up, but not before I want to mention something. It's a really good cause that you're actually really close to, and it's called Little Bleeders, because maybe not a lot of people know, but you sort of like suffer from hemophilia. And yeah, you're probably the best one to explain, so I just wanted to give you a minute to explain what it is and what Little Bleeders does for it.
So I've got this condition called Hemophilia. It's where I miss a sort of fairly key clotting factor in my blood, which basically means if I haven't had the medication, I sort of cut myself quite badly, then it won't stop bleeding, or I can suffer internal bleeding into joints and muscles. But I'm very lucky in that it's all kept under control by medication, and the medication's reasonably new. So hemophilia before I was born was quite debilitating. You'd have to sort of take it easy, not participate in sport, certainly not be racing down mountains in the middle of a peloton. And that's kind of the message. But haemophilia has changed now. We can do these kinds of things because of the medication, because of what we know. And actually, being fit and healthy is fairly crucial to managing the haemophilia well. So, which being inactive is now quite counterproductive. So our motto at Little Bleeders is move more, be more. And within the UK, we're promoting health and well-being. We're promoting being fit and healthy. But then long-term, the problems further afield are much more severe. In third world countries, the medication just isn't available. So haemophilia without medication is life-threatening. It's certainly life-shortening. It's your quality of life is far, far lower, and that's something we're endeavouring to change, is to not have it that it's a sort of a postcode condition where it really matters where you're born as to how well your haemophilia is managed. We want to change that. So our website's littlebleeders.com, and you can find out a lot more information there.
All right. Thanks, Hips Alex, for that, and a great cause, obviously. We're going to wrap it up. Like I said, this was it for this week. Please keep an eye on Alex Dowsett's Instagram account this week as well, because I think there's going to be a giveaway for some VIP tickets for Yorkshire. Correct, Alex?
Yes, there is. I'm going to be putting that up very soon.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks, Alex. Thanks so much for your time. It was a bit longer than a turbo talk. This time was more of diesel talk, but it's a long time trial, so you're going to need that diesel engine for that TT next week. Good luck in that one.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
All right, thank everyone for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the Tacx Turbo Talks podcast. This was Rob Bauer with Alex Dowsett of Team Katusha Alpecin. Stay tuned for a new Tacx Turbo Talks next week.